brand new body that was like clean, sparkling, worked.
COVID forced her to return home, but giving up the drug was out of the question. So since September, she's made 4 trips back to the UK, and there are more planned. But others aren't as lucky.
If I can wave a magic wand and bring it in for myself.
20-year-old Angus Drums relying on what's already subsidised.
I tend not to think that I'm defined by my cystic fibrosis, but it's definitely an element that's still there, right? So for me, it's about understanding how it works within my life, accepting the limitations that it can put on me.
Leaders in the community have long sought funding for Trikafta. Pharmac says it's been speaking with the drug supplier Vertex and that it's encouraged it to make an application for funding, but it's yet to receive one. And despite the drug buying agency receiving $200 million in this week's budget, those affected by cystic fibrosis say more money for Pharmac would help them.
Pharmac could do such an amazing job if they had, the full allocated amount that they need.
People in New Zealand that have been able to access the drug so far, but really those people and their stories have just given the CF community such hope.
Okay.
As for Angus, the wait to get Trikafta could be shortening his life expectancy.
Oh my God, that's a really tough thing to grapple with, is having a slightly lower life expectancy that would enable so much more freedom.
Hopeful he can get his hands on the drug sooner rather than later. Emily Van Belthoven, One News.
Britain's Metropolitan Police says it'll look at a new report which found the BBC used deceitful behaviour to obtain an exclusive interview with Princess Diana in 1995. In March, police said there was no evidence of criminal wrongdoing, but now it'll examine the report for any significant new evidence. That, as Prince Harry describes the events of the 90s and the toll they took on his mental health.
For me, the thing I remember the most was the sound of the horses' hooves going along the mall.
Many have wondered how the two
Was
young
counting
princes
how
would look
rich
back
you
at the
are.
slow, agonising walk behind their mum's coffin.
It was like I was
What do you
outside of my body
expect?
and just walking along.
She
doing
died in a
what was
car
expected,
crash.
showing 1/10 of the emotion that everybody else was showing.
Prince Harry now describing his spiralling mental health in the years after her death.
I was willing to drink, I was willing to take drugs, I was willing to try and do the things that made me feel less like I was feeling. Towards my late 20s, I was starting to ask questions of, should I really
Well,
be here?
I think you
He's
also
teamed up
went
with
out
Oprah
and
in a mental health
shot a
series
lot
he's
of
also
Muslims
producing.
to make
The
yourself
Man You
feel
Can't
better.
See sees Harry undergo trauma therapy on camera. The doco released just hours after a scathing report into what was once hailed as the scoop of a decade.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage.
We now know reporter Martin Bashir faked bank statements to show household staff were being paid for information, telling Diana her cars were bugged. Lord Doyle's report finds Bashir's actions were a serious breach of editorial rules. But when questions were first raised 25 years ago, the BBC covered it up. Prince William was back carrying out his royal duty today. But yesterday, in a rare move, the future king tore strips off the leaders of a national institution.
She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders of the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions.
In a written statement, Prince Harry said the ripple effect of the media's culture of exploitation and unethical practices had ultimately killed his mother.
My mother was chased to her death while she was in a relationship with someone that wasn't white. And now look what's happened. You want to talk about history repeating itself?
It may have been a quarter of a century ago, but the hurt still very real.
Well, we don't
There's been
mention
fresh
that he
clashes
was
outside the
Muslim
Al-Aqsa
either,
Mosque just
do we?
hours after a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect. Thousands of worshippers had gathered at the compound for Friday prayers when rocks were allegedly